Honestly, it was a double team. I was just trying to escape the double team. I seen a little daylight, so I stepped back and just shot the shot. Yeah, I was just trying to escape it. I mean, they did a great job tonight. They mixed in double teams. Sometimes they double, sometimes they didn't. So it kind of threw me off guard tonight.
Okay, so Sully has kind of been the focal point of this team for a couple weeks, ever since he's really gotten into his rhythm, joining the starting lineup. He's getting double teamed now. It's funny, he was coming off the bench to start the season,
right?
And now he's the guy getting double teamed on
even
the Celtics.
Then he was their best player.
Yeah,
didn't you think? Even when he was coming off the bench,
of course.
Yeah,
and it just made it easier for him when he's coming off the bench.
Yeah, no, he demands a double team, and we saw why tonight. When they didn't double him, he made him pay, and even when they did double him, he still made him pay. I think that's what you're getting at is his big shot with 45 seconds left. Brandon Knight had just hit a 3, close it to 3 points. The Celtics are kind of, you got to kind of feel edgy, like, oh, is this like the last 2 games all over again? But no, he came up with a big shot, and that was just kind of what the Celtics did all night. Not to oversimplify it, but Brad Stevens did, so I feel like I'm allowed to. But there were a lot of times when they got themselves into some situations and they just hit big shots. And I thought that Jared Sullinger obviously was numero uno in that department.
Why do you like Jared Sullinger so much?
Because he's a very good player. Yeah. I think that the front line of him and Brandon Bass and Jeff Green is very interesting because they are almost always out-lengthened, if I can coin a phrase.
Always out-lengthened.
Ben Watanabe Enterprise.
Yeah. Real company.
Real company. Yeah. But they have managed to stay competitive, at least recently, on the glass, defensively and offensively. I mean, they're generally not going to win a lot of battles on points in the paint, but their ability to kind of stretch the defense out to 15 feet or even further, if you're talking about Jeff Green and Jared Sullinger, it really opens up things for the guards, which is funny. You think of it kind of being the other way around.
Well, they're all mid-range shooters.
Yeah, very good.
They can stretch. They can do. This team has the pieces in place to do all the things that people talk about nowadays as fads. They can shoot threes. They can stretch the floor. They've got athletes that can run and keep it up tempo. Rondo obviously is the missing piece. Right. 20 games into the season, where do you think they are now, and where do you think they're going to be when Rondo comes back and what looks like could be a week or two?
Yeah, well, I was joking before the game that I said prior to the season, and I said 19 games in, I thought they'd be 7 and 10.
Hilarious.
Kind of mocking my own public school education. But I'm not surprised that they are where they're at. I mean, given how bad the Eastern Conference was going to be, I think that this is an entirely realistic. This is not a fluke where they're at. And with Rondo coming back, they're only going to be more of a player here. Whereas you look at a lot of other teams, and it sounds crazy to say about a team like Toronto, which is, I believe, 3 or 4 games under 500. I think they're going to come back down to earth. That seems the same way that the Sixers won their first 3 games and they've come back down to earth.
Yeah.
The Celtics are only going to get better, and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, obviously, it depends on your opinion of Andrew Wiggins and Jabari Parker and Julius Randle.
Well, and it depends on your opinion of how bad the Nets will stay and whether the Hawks have a collapse in the near future as well.
That's true.
So it's another huge piece in the puzzle for them. Is could that pick end up being a very high pick?
Yeah, that's true. To me, I think that's a complicated game to play this early in the season. Although you're right, it does bear watching. But when you're talking about, you don't just have to watch one team. You got to watch 2 other teams, including yourself. Wondering where your pick's going to end up. That's interesting. The Hawks, though, I don't see the Hawks falling back that much, especially with, like we said, the East being as bad as it is.
Well, so the Celtics, they're headed towards NBA.
Let's come back. Yeah, I'm sorry.
They're headed towards NBA purgatory here. That's their problem because this team got through the rough patch of the season pretty well. To be... I mean, obviously, on top of your division's a joke at this point with the way that the Olympics performing, but they're still at 400. That's kind of like the top. That was the best case scenario for the entire season. We were looking at expecting Rondo to come back some point midway through the season.
Yeah.
Now they're looking at Rondo coming back soon. Their offense hasn't been that good, but you put someone that's like leaps and bounds ahead of every other offensive player on that team, and is a great point guard that makes the offense work. It's not like you're adding like Zach Randolph to your offense, who's going to be just like a guy you can go to. You're talking about a guy that runs the entire team. This team could be pretty competitive for a middle, kind of a low playoff spot.
No, I completely agree. And kind of the reason that I think Rondo is going to have such a dramatic effect is the way that Brad Stevens has set up this team to be so dynamic. Like we were talking about, I think that maybe coming into the year, a lot of traditionalists viewed the fact that, they didn't have a healthy pure point guard. They didn't have a true post player as weaknesses. And I think that we're kind of seeing throughout the league, really, how many dominant post big men are there? There's not a whole lot
that make their teams good.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And that's why I think it's interesting that Sullinger and Bass have been able to compete. You've been able to send out that threesome of those three forwards who are pretty much all the same height, similar weights. They can basically go interchangeable on defense. On offense, you can move them around. They can finish from close, from far away, from mid-range. And that's why I think the Rondo return is going to be so substantial for these guys, because these are guys who are already raring for teammates to help make them better. And when you put maybe the best guy in the NBA next to maybe Chris Paul back on the court with these guys, I think it's going to make a dramatic difference in how effective they are.
Best point guard in the NBA. You said best guy in the NBA. Do you mean best point guard or
best guy as far as creating shots for his team?
Because LeBron not that good anymore, obviously. Just shoot like 50% from deep.
He's still the MVP.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go to the last segment: boxing and balling. We'll be right back. This is the Garden Report on Celtics Blog and CLNS Radio.